Okay, so I hope you're well. My name's Anna Lagrange, and I'm going to be talking to you tonight about how you can offer breastfeeding classes or support, or both, services anyway, within your birth or baby business. So I've got a chat box. Feel free to introduce yourselves, let us know what you do, where you're watching from, and I will keep an eye on it. And then also, as we go along, do let me know if you have any questions, because I'm very happy to answer them. As we go along, you can interrupt me, it's not a problem at all. When I see something pop up in the box, I will try and answer it for you. We're not going to be very long tonight. I think it's going to be around about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. So it's not going to be a late one. I'm just really hoping that I can inspire you to think about some new things that you could perhaps consider adding to the wonderful work that you already do with families. So, as I said, my name's Anna Lagrange. I am a mum of 3. I live in Kent, in the UK, so about an hour and a half from London. And I am a paediatric nurse. I have been for 21 years now. And I'm also a lactation consultant. I help families to feed their babies, but also educate. So I do breastfeeding education. That's really where my passion lies, and I'll tell you a bit more about where that came from in a minute. I'm also a meditation teacher, and I'm a student of positive psychology. I'm studying masters in positive psychology at the moment at Buckinghamshire New University. So I'm really, really passionate when we're talking about breastfeeding, lactation, parenting in general, actually, about that emotional side of all of that, and how by considering and prioritizing actually the emotional well-being of clients, that we can help them to have a better experience, but also on a physiological level, focusing on the emotional well-being actually has a really positive effect on lactation itself. So it's kind of like a win-win situation. And I'm also really passionate about helping other professionals, so like yourself, like me, like my students, people that I come across, to get the most out of their life, out of their business, out of the work that they do. So they're not just giving all the time, but they're also ensuring they're making time for themselves and creating a business or a service that is sustainable and is long lasting. I see so much burnout in our world, so I feel that's another really important aspect of my work as well. So this talk is for you if you get asked about breastfeeding all the time, but maybe you worry about whether you're giving the right advice. Maybe you've got your own experience and you share bits from that, which is obviously very valid. But sometimes, as you know, if you've done that, those solutions, the things that worked for you aren't necessarily going to work for somebody else. And I know often people who don't have a breastfeeding qualification or haven't done any study will sometimes, just when it's a breastfeeding thing, they just share on. They just say, oh, here's our local breastfeeding person, go and speak to them, or I know somebody really great. And so I know that's what a lot of you might do. Let me know actually in the chat box if you want to, sort of what you do when you've got somebody who's asking about breastfeeding support. And how do you feel about it? Is it something you feel confident about doing, or is it something that you worry about? Because the thing is, breastfeeding, well, when I first became a breastfeeding mum, I'd already been working with families for years, not specifically in lactation, but of course, as a nurse in the paediatric wards, I came across breastfeeding all the time. And it wasn't until I trained to become a peer supporter, after my second son was born, did I realise that I hadn't, the education I'd been given as a health professional wasn't good enough really for breastfeeding support. And I realised there was a lot more to breastfeeding than I had realised. And I think I remember on the wards really being quite anxious if I had a breastfeeding parent there and thinking, oh, I really don't know if what I'm telling them is right, because I hadn't had the right support and training with it. So if that's something you experience, I think it's so common, it's so normal, especially in our culture here in the UK, where breastfeeding support isn't really, or certainly around health professionals, it's not that adequate. It's not really prioritised by the NHS. this talks for you if maybe you see your clients struggling with breastfeeding and you really wish that you could do more to help them. And if you'd love to do more work with the clients that you already have, offer them extra services because you perhaps don't want to be going out and looking for new clients all the time. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and look for new clients, but it can be really useful to be able to offer something extra to your clients when you've built up that really good relationship with them. It's a really nice thing to be able to do so that they can keep working with you. And that can be really frustrating, can't it? If you're, for example, if you're working with people in pregnancy and then you're constantly looking for new clients, perhaps you're a hypnobirthing instructor or an antenatal teacher, have you ever considered being able to offer, sorry, it's really loud in my house. My daughter's just come in from the paddling pool and she's really tired. Wanting to offer, something extra so they can stay with you, so they can keep working with you when you've built up that really lovely relationship. So I want to tell you a little bit about the experiences of new parents. I'm sure actually you already know this and you recognise a lot of this yourselves. So we know that sadly, in the UK this is, and I know that some of you may not be here in the UK, and that's absolutely fine. But the statistics that I work to and that I am aware of are the UK statistics, although even they're quite out of date, to be honest with you, because the government doesn't really keep a track of the statistics in the way that they used to. So 80% of breastfeeding mothers in surveys have said that they stopped breastfeeding before they wanted to. So that's really, really high. Where I come from as a parent who has had 3 incredibly different breastfeeding experiences and a professional who's helped thousands and thousands of families, is that, everybody's situation is different. My daughter was actually mixed fed, quite unusual for an IBCLC. I wasn't able to make all the milk that she needed. So I'm really, passionate about parents making choices that will work for them and that are the right choices for them, but at the same time, to make good choices we need good information, good education, and we need the right level of support. And it actually really breaks my heart when I hear that 80% of people who started to breastfeed and had a plan and had a vision for breastfeeding, that they actually stopped before they had wanted to because they'd found it too difficult. And one of the reasons that people give for that early, stopping before they wanted to is the lack of support, or the quality of the information they got was not the right thing. On top of that, we know that breastfeeding is a biologically expected activity. It's developmentally part of birth and giving birth, and then your body goes on to automatically make breast milk whether you choose to breastfeed or not. So it's a biologically expected thing for both babies and the bodies of women. And this can mean that when breastfeeding is very difficult or it stops early, that it can feel like really upsetting, traumatic. It can bring up huge amounts of negative emotions, and often those are kind of not talked about. There's not enough space given to talk about those kind of emotions. A lot of people might say, it's wonderful, isn't it, that we've got an alternative for babies who aren't able to receive breast milk. That's a really positive thing, of course. But at the same time, I think sometimes the emotions around stopping breastfeeding there's not really a space or a format or a place for them to be. So, and the other thing I think which is really important is emotional well-being is prioritized with breastfeeding support. And like I was saying just now about people who stop breastfeeding, but even when people are feeding their babies when they're new parents, there's not enough focus on the emotional well-being of those parents. Often with health professionals, I speak as one myself as well, it's often around, is the baby feeding? Are they growing? And that's kind of it. But actually, there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more around feeding, isn't there, than whether the baby's growing or not. That's kind of a basic. But what about all the other stuff? What about helping those parents to thrive, feel confident, and enjoy parenthood? So, what do parents want and need? And I just want to go over the top 3 things that helps parents to have, not be in that 80%, to help them to have that experience that they hope and dream of. So the first thing which I believe that parents need to know, and that parents tell me later on, is that they need to know that breastfeeding is a learned skill that takes practice. One of my students the other day put a post out, and I just loved it. It was based on something we talk about on the course, but it said, breastfeeding is natural like walking, not natural like breathing. And what she meant by that is that it is a learned skill. Breastfeeding, chest feeding, whichever language you want to use, however you identify, it's something that is going to take time. When we look at other biologically developmental spaces in our life, so whether we're learning to walk, whether we're learning to talk, whether we're learning to eat, when our teenagers are getting ready to grow into adults, it's just not a sudden like you're there and you just expect to do it. There's a lot of mistakes, there's a lot of getting things wrong, there's watching, copying, trying. All of these things are part of those stages of life that we go through. So I find it quite interesting that we don't, when we're pregnant, or when a lot of people are pregnant, it just is an expectation that breastfeeding will just happen, that the baby will be born and put on the mother's body, and then it's all just going to happen. And of course there are those cases where that does occur, but for most people it is a learning curve. And I would say the people who do find breastfeeding easy from the start, I think that's really a mindset piece, and also an expectation that it is a learned skill, that's something that's going to take time and take a bit of practice and get something to get used to. And there also tend to be people that are just very committed to it and quite relaxed around it. But I think for a majority of people, actually it can be really quite challenging. And I think one of the best things we can do, especially in pregnancy, is teach people that you've got to be patient with yourself, you've got to be kind to yourself, you've got to be gentle with yourself and your baby whilst you learn this thing that's completely new. And also talking about things like walking and talking and eating, of course, with all of those things, we're watching and we're observing and we're trying out. But of course, if we're in a culture like we are in the UK, where breastfeeding isn't all around us, there's none of that watching that we might see in other cultures. So we also are a little bit on the back foot here in England, in that there isn't that kind of watching and learning that you might get in a culture where breastfeeding is just the absolute norm. So as I said, breastfeeding takes time, it takes the connection of new neural pathways whilst we're learning, it takes mistakes, and it takes flexibility as well. We know that, these statistics are really old now, because we haven't done a national survey on infant feeding since 2010. Local authorities are supposed to be doing their own, but the uptake of information gathering hasn't been good enough to be able to get national statistics for it. But we know roughly around 80s, in some places more, some places as closer to 90, 95 of parents, are breastfeeding before they leave hospital. So again, I think the stats say it there as well, is that those are based on hospital births. So there's a lot more that could be done with the statistics that we have. We know a majority of parents want to breastfeed their baby, and we do know that those 80% that have stopped before they wanted to, a lot of them stop around a 3 to 6 week mark. So what this tells me is that antenatal education around lactation, about how your body works, about how breastfeeding works, around what's normal, how do I know my baby's getting enough milk, how do I how often is my baby going to feed, all of this stuff is the best place really to learn that is in pregnancy. So that really is key, I think, to cutting down that 80% of people who stop breastfeeding before they wanted to. And the realistic part's important, because I have a real bugbear with breastfeeding education that kind of says that, oh, it's all natural. Yes, it is natural, but it will just all happen. Just let your baby lie on you and you will all be fine. We've got to have realistic breastfeeding education. And it's not around telling people that it's going to be horrific or awful or sharing lots of horror stories. It is that piece around, it is a learned thing. It's be patient, prioritize it over the first few weeks. Here's some tips that can help you. The mindset part is really important to that as well. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. The second thing that parents want is they want a knowledgeable champion. They want somebody who knows about infant feeding. They don't want to be told lots of different things by lots of different professionals, and that's one of the problems we have here. And they want to be told in a positive way, somebody who's going to have their back, tell them they're doing well, help them reframe some of those negative thought patterns into positive ones where they can see what they're doing well, not what they're doing badly. See the positives, not the failures, as some parents might call it. So those two things together, the knowledge and also the kind of championing you and giving you their time, the support, in other words, is really, really key. When we share our knowledge, it gives reassurance. And I'm not necessarily talking about everybody becoming a lactation consultant. In fact, I'm definitely not talking about that. Lactation consultants, we are here for the really complex, difficult cases. But the truth is, if people were to have a level of basic breastfeeding support in the beginning, as early as possible, then many fewer people would get to a crisis point with their breastfeeding journey. So we need more lactation knowledge in the communities. It should be absolutely everywhere. I have a very, very strong belief, and if you've seen my talks before, you know that I say this often, is that every single person, whoever they are, who comes into contact through their work with expectant or new parents should have a basic level of breastfeeding education, and they should keep it regularly updated, because you do get those questions. There's little things that you could share that would be really useful. One of the things we know about other developed countries, not that I particularly like the phrase developed countries, but you know what I mean, who have high breastfeeding rates, so like Germany, like Scandinavia, the difference in those countries is that they have got a really good level of education in their healthcare system and everywhere around infant feeding. So if somebody goes with a problem to see somebody, they know they're going to get a good quality answer, and they're probably going to get pretty much the same answer wherever they go. It's going to be quite standardized, and that's just not something we have here. The other thing around having knowledge and reassurance is that if we can support families with their mindset, so help them to have that positive outlook, help them to see that they're doing really, really well, give them tools to be able to champion themselves as well, it can be really, really useful. And again, this stuff is well done in antenatal, but it can be done really well in postnatal as well. And when I say mindset tools, I mean those positivity tools, but also what we use at the Mindful Breastfeeding School is relaxation tools. So tools that we can help when parents are feeling that level of stress, when they're feeling like they're getting it all wrong, when they're in a kind of like stressed out fight flight mode. We use simple relaxation tools like breathing techniques, like short guided relaxations that are suitable for a new parent to help break that cycle of stress and help them be more relaxed. And we know the evidence shows us that in turn helps babies to grow more. It helps babies to sleep more. It generally helps stress levels to lower levels of cortisol in the milk. So it's all together very, very positive results from very small and simple tools. So yeah, good quality basic knowledge is enough for most families, and the earlier the better. So we don't all need to become lactation consultants. We don't all need to study for years, but having that level of good quality education and knowledge that we can share is ideal, and it goes alongside that reassurance piece, which is really, for the most part, apart from perhaps some support around latch and getting a deep latch, really reassurance, letting them know this is normal, is pretty much the most useful thing that we can do for many of the parents that we're working with. And the third thing that parents want and need is a community. You guys know this. You know this. Parents may not know it. If you're somebody who works with parents in pregnancy, they may not know this, but we do, don't we? We know that cliched phrase, but it's so true. It takes a village to raise a baby. I mean, really, have we ever had a time where people have been as isolated as they have for the last year and a half. I don't think we have. I think it's been incredibly hard for parents, and I think we almost need to kind of slowly encourage parents out to sort of start forming these communities, start, you know, having people that they can spend time with so they can find out what's normal and what isn't. There's some interesting phenomenon that coming through over the last year for lactation consultants specifically, where we're seeing a lot more anxiety, a lot more parents just asking lots of questions that really could be, you know, talked through with a friend, somebody in a similar situation, in breastfeeding groups, the sorts of things that we used to have everywhere and now are really lacking. So I feel very strongly about social groups, breastfeeding groups, new parents groups. They don't have to be inside a village hall or a building. They can be walks. They can be online, of course they can, but it's really important that we're helping create these social spaces for parents. And at the moment, I think we might need to kind of be a little bit active in it and do a bit more of an encouraging and set these things up and just help parents to create the social groups that they need in this time. So I'm just wondering, for those of you who are watching, how this sounds to you. So how would you like to have 2 or more new streams of revenue from existing and new customers? How would you like to help families have a happier and more connected early parenting experience? And how do you feel about becoming more confident in giving good quality breastfeeding and mental well-being support in your community? I hope all of you, those things sound quite exciting. But something I know that people come say to me before they come and train is they say something like they are worried about charging for breastfeeding classes. They say there's lots of nearby breastfeeding groups that are free. So if they were to set up an antenatal class or a postnatal class, I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the examples we do in a minute. Why would people come to yours? Well, here it is. So I was going to do different, it doesn't matter, that's fine. So the difference with the mindful, sorry, I'm just on a different slide than I thought I would be. The difference with the mindful breastfeeding school is that we are very unique in the classes that we offer. As far as I know, the mindful breastfeeding school, and this is a worldwide statement, as far as I know, it's the only education program that has emotional well-being tools or emotional well-being at its core, at its heart of its classes. So it means that we're providing something completely different. It's very tangible, it's very measurable actually, because we've got research, not lots, but enough research now to back up how mindful breastfeeding really makes a difference to the families that use it. So if you did decide to become a mindful breastfeeding practitioner or add mindful breastfeeding to your services that you're already running, you'd be creating something very unique that only other mindful breastfeeding practitioners are doing. And actually, within the mindful breastfeeding practitioners I've trained, everyone is doing something slightly differently. I don't know anybody who's got a service or business that's identical to anybody else's, because you're your business. You make your business unique and different with your own interests and your own experiences and your own personality. And that's really important to me. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute as well. So the sorts of classes that people run after they have trained with us is they might run a 1, 2 or 3 session antenatal class. I recommend 3 session antenatal classes. Why is it that for birth we do weeks long courses? I've seen 6 weeks, 8 weeks antenatal courses, certainly 4-week ones. But yet when it comes to breastfeeding classes, we think all the information can be done in one day. Absolutely not. I really do think, and I know this as somebody who used to try and teach a kind of 1 class breastfeeding course, it wasn't particularly enjoyable, it was quite rushed. And because at the Mindful Breastfeeding School, our classes are around taking space, giving time, letting people relax, letting them be able to take some time for themselves. We don't want it to be rushed. So we do a 3 session antenatal classes, but there's other options as well. This is a really flexible qualification where you're able to fit the tools and the classes into however you want to do it, what you think is right for you and your clients. The classes include mindset, relaxation, and breastfeeding know-how. I personally, and I know lots of other people will agree with me, there's no point teaching loads and loads of practical breastfeeding stuff when somebody's pregnant. It's important they know how their body works. It's important they know what to expect. It's important to share really good quality resources with them so that when their baby comes, they're ready. But to be honest, a lot of the stuff that's taught sometimes in breastfeeding classes isn't really remembered beyond the birth. So we use mindset. We get people psychologically ready for feeding their infant and psychologically ready for that 4th trimester period by using relaxation, teaching them the basic breastfeeding know-how, teaching them a little bit about latch, but generally getting their uncovering any negative thought patterns they might have around infant feeding. And we all come to breastfeeding with our own breastfeeding stories, you know, whoever we are. We've got experiences, we've overheard things, we've got ideas about what breastfeeding means and what it should be like. And for many of us, that changes when we become parents ourselves, but it's really useful to be having those conversations antenatally if possible. And that's the sort of space that you provide with mindful breastfeeding antenatal classes. We have pre-created sessions that are, you can just literally take them and run with them, or you can create your own. When I first started this course 3 years ago, I encouraged people to just use the tools on their own, but now we've created just a ready to go program. So you've got presentations that you can just go and run a course literally as soon as you finish the training, which I know people really like, and then you're welcome to adapt them as you would like to. Some people though just add it onto their courses. So I've got people like hypnobirthing teachers who just adding sessions onto something they're already teaching, and of course the mind-body connection stuff has already been taught quite a lot, so they adapt it and they maybe do their breastfeeding session over a half day or a couple of hours or a couple of sessions. So it is really flexible in that way. That's how I want it to be. That's how I created it. I don't want you to feel that you have to do something a certain way, because that might not fit into how you like your business to be run. I'll give you another example of that as well. Somebody I know who is a doula, and she runs antenatal classes, and she's decided she's not going to run breastfeeding classes. She's going to do them for infant feeding ones. She gets quite a lot of parents who bottle feed and plan to bottle feed, so she's changing some of the language around it and she's making it fit for the parents that she's there, but with breastfeeding education as well. And that's just absolutely perfect. It really is about knowing your clients and knowing what feels good and right for you. The other thing that was really important to me is that classes, I mean, clearly this is a birth class, not a breastfeeding one, this is a stock photo, but what's important is that classes can be taught in all sorts of settings. I really encourage people at the moment to, if they can, do some of their teaching outside. I've got somebody at the moment who's doing walking sessions, and going on walks with parents and doing a lot of the discussion and stuff on a walk, which is just lovely. So again, it can all be adapted, and obviously over the last 18 months people have been teaching all their classes online, so things can be done online, in person, or outside. And as I said, we also have a postnatal parents course. So our 6-week new parents course is again something which you are welcome to use, but you don't have to. It's a breastfeeding group with a difference. It's a course that people book the whole thing, and it's kind of like a course that supports with breastfeeding, with the basics of breastfeeding. So just reassurance, letting people know what's normal, helping with latch, sending them to somebody else if it's obviously a more specialized breastfeeding problem. But what's different, of course, it really focuses on relaxation, connecting a group of mothers usually together, and forming that support group and taking them from a place where they're feeling overwhelmed, isolated, perhaps in doubt, unsure about everything, to a place of confidence where they're feeling like they can tune into their instincts as a parent, where they're feeling a lot more connected with their baby, connected with themselves, and just generally like they're able to ask for what they need and go into parenthood with the knowledge that they do need to take moments to prioritize themselves and not just everybody else. And these are some of the other things. So those are like the preset courses, and then there's some other things that people do, but the sky's the limit, to be honest with you. People do one-to-one sessions, and obviously when they're more bespoke one-to-one sessions, they charge more for it, and they sometimes just do like relaxation sessions. Some people just add these aspects onto their classes that they already do, so they'll finish up with some mindful breastfeeding stuff, or they add it in a different way. All sorts of things that people do. So this is a slide I was looking for earlier. It's the only breastfeeding education course that includes the brain-body connection and lactation, and gives you mindfulness and positivity tools for supporting the mental well-being and breastfeeding. It's really important to me that people who learn the mindful breastfeeding tools have a really good knowledge of how breastfeeding works. You don't have to have had your own breastfeeding experience for this. You don't have to have a certain type of experience. One of the barriers in lactation education, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of the volunteer programs have been set up around mothers, and they've been set up for mothers to support other mothers, and the trainings around that, and they want you to have had a certain level of breastfeeding experience yourself. It's usually 6 months or 9 months. The problem with that is if somebody hasn't had a very good experience, or if somebody's chosen not to breastfeed themselves, but then they still want to go on and support families, it's really hard for them to access the education. So it's really important to me that anybody can come on this course. You just have to be passionate about sharing your knowledge and supporting families so that they can have a better breastfeeding experience themselves. And there's just a little bit about the program. So we start off with the basics, learning about, how does breastfeeding work? How does the body work? We learn about counselling skills. We've got a wonderful session, not from me, from a counsellor called Louise Allen, who teaches you some wonderful counselling skills. We do problem solving. So we talk about all the breastfeeding problems, what might come up, how you can find resources for parents, really good quality ones to share, how to build up a list of specialists that you can refer to, and how to know when to do that. And then we discover is the part of the course where we learn all about the brain-body connection when it comes to lactation, and mindset, the subconscious, all of those kinds of things. Then we experience the tools for ourselves. We go through a section of really understanding what it feels like to go into our own out of our own stress system and relax, and we spend some time really becoming familiar with all the tools that you're going to use as a practitioner. And then the final part of the course, which is in some ways such an important part, is to curate, which is about setting up your services and working out what services you're going to run, how you're going to do it, how you're going to market them, how you're going to share this stuff with your customers, how's it all going to run and work. So you will learn everything you need to run antenatal classes, one-to-one sessions with expectant parents, and the postnatal 6-week course. And it's a peer support level qualification. So you'd be at the level of a peer supporter, helping with latch, helping with what's normal, teaching people how the body works, but passing on the more complex stuff to others. You also get complete support from me, because I do know that all sorts of things come in. So for the whole of the time that you're mindful breastfeeding practitioner and supporter, you will be in a group where you're able to get supervision and ongoing learning and support from me. In fact, we have weekly learning sessions, so you get a lot of input from me beyond the training. It's flexible, so it fits into your whatever you're doing now. And that's it really around the course. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. It is an online course. It takes 12 weeks. It's accredited by Thinktree Hub, and it starts next week. It starts on the 16th. Laura is someone who came and trained me right in the beginning, and I know that she gets a lot out of the flexibility. She really likes the ongoing support. It's something that's meant a lot to her while she's been building up her business. You can book the course. I'm going to put just give me 1 second. I'm just going to put the link in the bio for you. So that you can go and have a look at the course if you want to. you can book a discovery call with you if you want. I'm going to put the link to that at the end. And throughout the course, we have, we have a Facebook group, so it's ongoing support with your colleagues, but also with me. We have a buddy system, so you buddy up with somebody through the course. And just from tonight, the first people to book from this session, they will get a free 30-minute coaching session with me included in that booking as well. There's two options for training. So there's the Kickstart option. The Kickstart option is the course itself. So the 12 weeks of video classes, some are live. There's 2 live and interactive sessions, and the rest are either pre-recorded or they're live, but you can catch up with them later. You get all the class outlines, the presentations, the relaxation MP3s, the resources. So everything is just ready to go. You get ongoing support in the Facebook group, and then a new Facebook group afterwards as well with the rest of the practitioners. You get a pack posted to you with resources, so you get like a knitted boob, and you get a copy of my book and some other printed resources. And you just get ongoing support and business and supervision support. I would never train people in breastfeeding support and then just leave them to it. I don't agree with that way of working at all. All sorts of things can come up and come along, as I'm sure you've already discovered in your business. And it's really important to me that I'm supporting you with your ongoing learning. There's no ongoing fees for that support. That's something that you get as part of the cost of the course. So it's 1847 is the option, pay in one, or it's £105 a month for 9 months. There's also the access all areas option, and this is my coaching option. So this is an option where you get extra support from me all the way along, bespoke one-to-one support. We have half a day together. If you're in the UK and close enough, we can do it face-to-face or we can do it online. It's completely your choice. We have 7 one-to-one coaching calls, and then once you finish the 12 weeks, you get put onto my coaching program, which is for building up a business. It's called 4 Months to Flourish in Your Breastfeeding Business, but it will actually work for any birth or baby business. It takes you through 4 pillars of building a business that is, successful, sustainable, which and the most important thing, the reason the course is called Flourish is because I really believe that you've got to enjoy the work you're doing. We've all gone into this work because we've got a passion for it, and it's really, really important that it's fun, but also that it fits into our lives and that we have the life that we dreamt of when we went into this work. And that takes quite a lot of planning, I think, and work to get that right, and that's what I like supporting you to do. There's also lots of social media training on that program, and you also get WhatsApp access with me Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Text me as and when you need to for ongoing coaching, and that program is 2187 as one payment, or you can have 9 months of £277 a month. I just get asked this a lot, so I just wanted to show you an example of how you can get a return on investment. So this is an example of what you could earn once your classes are going. So if you were to do the 3-session antenatal course, it's 75 to 150 per couple. Having said that, that's if you did it as a group. I do have practitioners now who are doing this course for over £200 for the 3 sessions one-to-one, because that's the kind of bespoke services that they do. But let's start off with the kind of group idea. So if you, and then the 6-week postnatal mindful breastfeeding group, people charge between £60 and £120 per parent and baby. Again, really dependent on where you are in the country, what fees are like, and also what your current charges are. But if you were to run one of each of those courses a month with 4 to 6 people in each, that would give you an income of between 540 and 1,620 income a month. So you can see how quickly, once you have started your courses and you are letting people know about them, especially if you've already got clients that are working with you, then you can see how quickly you can make the return on the investment that you've put into the course or the coaching as well. I just wanted to show you a little message from Rashmita.
My experience with the mindful breastfeeding practitioner course and the business coaching from Anna. My name is Rashmita and I run a program called the Mama Level Up program, which is a program for new first-time moms, and it's all about mindful breastfeeding and baby sleep and mama mindset, and looking at all of these things together and helping new moms thrive in the first few months of motherhood. So I did the Mindful Breastfeeding Practitioner course in November last year, and I have to say it is the best course that I have done on breastfeeding. I've done a few, but this was amazing. The content was so good, and everything was so clearly set out, so easy to follow. And the support that Anna gave was second to none. If I had any questions, she was always available to answer anything, and really, really knowledgeable about everything you can think of to do with breastfeeding. So if you were thinking of doing the course, I definitely would recommend it. I did the course with the one-to-one coaching with Anna, and I have to say that if you're on the fence, you're thinking about it, I definitely recommend doing the course with the coaching, because Anna's if you're running a business, sometimes when you are so kind of fully immersed in things, you don't really see the blocks that you have, the things that are holding you back, because you're so stuck in the day-to-day and the doing stuff that it really having Anna as a business coach really helped me, because I kept getting stuck at the same point every time, and I don't think I realized what I was doing until it took me kind of just talking things through with her, and then having someone from the outside look in and give you advice, and then they know where you get. It was really helpful. I couldn't recommend Anna enough. If anyone wants to talk to me about any of my experiences, I'd be happy to do that. If you're
Okay, so you are very, very welcome. I know this is a big step if you're not working in breastfeeding already. This is a big step to take, to invest in a course, do the training. And I know some of you might not be sure this is quite right for you for whatever reasons. There are obviously other avenues into breastfeeding support, volunteer organisations, and all sorts of other things. So do book a chat with me. I'm going to pop that into the box now. I'm going to stop the share now because I'm just going to answer any questions that are coming up. So let me just pop that in. If anybody would like to have a 20-minute chat with me, it's not salesy at all, or pushy, or it's just literally a chat about what it's sort of like a consultation really. You can tell me what it is that you have a desire for in your community, what you'd like to offer, what is your plans and your dreams for the support you want to give, and then I can help guide you in the right direction for you, whatever that may be. And my personal experience is that I've run NHS services, I've run peer support groups sort of as a volunteer as well, and I've sort of run lactation consultant clinics and the courses that I'm teaching here. So I've really done across the board here in the UK, and so I can definitely help point you in the right direction, and I will let you know if I don't think this course is the right thing for you at the moment or at any point. Excuse me. So yeah, just if you want to book a free call in with me around whatever your thoughts are, just to kind of clarify things, then please do that. Has anybody got any questions they want to ask me? Okay, well, I've really enjoyed chatting to you all tonight. You know where I am if you do have any questions. For those of you watching on the replay, you will be getting these links in the email where the replay is sent to you. So hopefully you can go back to the email and find those if you do want to ask me anything or book a call. And I'm hoping to see some of you on the course next week or perhaps another time. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.